Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Greg's Sports. This is the CFL DFS video for week number 8. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We will be going over my CFL DFS sheet for week number 8, talking about all the relevant players, all kind of like the injury reports, anything else that's gone on throughout the week, whether or not I would consider them a GPP option, a cash game option, a GPP paydown option, or kind of like a dart throw. And then I'll also be talking about whether or not I'll be in line with the field on each player, overweight, underweight, slightly overweight, slightly underweight, just to kind of give you guys a little bit more insight in terms of what I do think the ownership will be on each player and kind of where I'll be making my stance for the week overall. But without further ado, we'll get right into it. We're going to start off with the Montreal Alouettes, who have some news at quarterback. Davis Alexander unfortunately tweaked his hamstring once again. He has been placed on the 6-game injured list, so McLeod Bethel Thompson will get the start this week. He's $8,400, so he will be the cheapest starting quarterback on the docket this week. So I would consider him a GPP paydown option. He does definitely have some upside, but obviously the most attractive part of him is going to be that cheap price tag. Not going to give you too much in terms of rushing, so it's probably going to have to all be through the air. Unfortunately, Tyson Philpott's going to miss this week, so a little bit limited in terms of those wide receivers, but they still do have some good ones there at the same time as well. Then we move down to a running back with Sean Thomas Erlington as a GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on him at $6,200, and then Travis Tice, $4,700, and I have him listed as a paydown option in line with the field on him. Maybe ever so slightly overweights the field with the news that James Lecter Jr. is going to be out this week, so we could see some additional return duties for Travis Tice just in general. Primarily going to be returning kicks, and then they did sign Lincoln Victor to kind of operate as one of the other returners. He's probably going to do most of the punt return duties, I would assume, at this point in time. Then we move down to wide receivers. Obviously, big news. Tyson Philpott out once again due to a hamstring injury, and then James Lecter Jr., their punt and kick returner, is going to be out due to a hand injury. So that does open up some opportunities, especially in the wide receiver room, as well as some potential return opportunities. So in terms of the wide receivers, Austin Mack returned last week, $6,700 GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on him. Maybe ever so slightly overweights the field. You know, he didn't have the greatest week one back, but definitely do like the upside that he could potentially have in this matchup at the same time as well. And then I do have both Tyler Snead and Cole Speaker listed as GPP options. Probably going to be slightly overweight to the field on both them. Tyler Snead's at $7,900, had a pretty strong season, and then Cole Speaker coming off a really strong performance, $6,600. Definitely do like getting to him as well. Hakeem Harris was moved over to that practice roster, and then Lincoln Victor was signed this week and is expected to handle some of the return duties this week just in general. He's $2,500. You know, if you want to take a dart throw on him, you could definitely do that at the same time as well. And then last but not least, the Montreal Alouettes, $4,400 GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on them. I do like their defense overall. I think they're a solid, steady unit, but the Stampeders are starting to right the ship on offense, so could be an interesting matchup just in general. And then we move down to that Calgary Stampeders team. We have Vernon Adams Jr. at quarterback, $9,700, back-to-back strong weeks for him, GPP option. Might be slightly overweight to the field on him. Just kind of depends on how the quarterback ownership shakes out altogether. And then their third-string quarterback, their short yardage quarterback, Quincy Vaughn, $6,500. Was limited in practice on Monday, did not practice on Tuesday due to a foot injury, but is listed as questionable for this game. He's on the depth chart, so safe to assume that he will be active and probably handling that short yardage duty once again. You know, obviously, if he's not quite able to handle that or he gets banged up a little bit more in the game, they could see PJ Walker take over that role at the same time as well. Dedrick Mills, our running back, $9,000 GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on him once again this week. Not too many major stands to make with him. I think we're probably going to be pretty close to the ownership. You know, Benjamin was placed on the 1-game injured list once again as a healthy scratch. And then Jayshawn Ante is back this week. He's $3,800. Was able to practice in full on Monday and Tuesday due to that ankle injury. He's on the depth chart listed as the backup running back for this week. So Ludwig Chuckett was moved over to the practice roster. He had been active the last couple games and did play pretty well in kind of like garbage time last week. So definitely do like the future for him, but he's back on that practice roster. And then William Langley's at fullback is active for this week after being a healthy scratch last week. In terms of the wide receivers, Clark Barnes out once again due to an ankle injury. Reggie Bagleton is still on that 6-game injury list. So I think we're mainly looking at the same 4 wide receivers in Tevin Jones, Jalen Philpott, Dominic Grimes, and Damian Alford. All kind of GPP options, all kind of in that like high 5K range to like that 6K range just in general. Probably going to be in line with the field on Philpott, Jones, and Rhymes. I'm going to be overweight to the field on Damian Alford once again. You know, if you want to roll him out as a cash game option, you can definitely do that, but his price tag is a little bit higher at this point in time, but still looks like a really solid option just in general. Malik Henry was limited practice once again this week due to that knee injury. He remains out, but he is trending in the right direction still. And then Kalen Horton will be their returner once again, so if you want to take a dart throw on him at $2,500, you can definitely do that as well. And then we move down to the Calgary Stampeders defense, $3,600, a viable paydown option. Slightly overweight to the field on them, with the Montreal Alouettes starting McCoy Bethel-Thompson at quarterback. He is a good, experienced veteran player, but he's had some games as of late where he's been a little bit turnover prone, so there could be some upside there. Stampeders played well last week. They're really cheap price tag, and it's, not the worst matchup in the world at this point in time. Then we move down to Roughriders with Trevor Harris at quarterback, coming off a really, really strong performance last week. $9,800 GPP option. I have slightly overweight to the field on him. I do understand that there could be some additional ownership for him this week in general. So if that's the case, probably more in line with the field, but definitely do like him once again this week. AJ Alouette at running back, $9,500 GPP option. Slightly overweight to the field on him. I think he's kind of due for like a big touchdown game, but he's been really solid, steady, one of the safest running backs you can have on pretty much any given week. And then Kadeem Carey behind him was placed on that 6-game injured list, and then they did promote Mario Anderson up from the practice roster, but he's not on DraftKings at this point in time. Moving down to the wide receivers, Mario Alford is out once again due to the hip injury, so would assume that Dre McRae gets that punt and kick return duty once again. He's at $2,500, so would consider him a paydown option if he's active, and would be slightly overweight to the field on him once again. He was a very, very good returner in college, looked really good in the preseason, was decent last week, so I think there is some decent upside with him just in general. In terms of the wide receivers, I'm mainly looking at Samuel Ellis, Keyshawn Johnson, and Dante Myers at this point in time. All as kind of GPP options. Slightly underweight to the field on MLS and Keyshawn Johnson just due to their respective price tags of $8,900 and $9,800. Dante Myers, coming off that really strong performance once again, $8,500, has had a really good season so far. GPP option probably would consider him in line with the field though. And then, if you want to take a shot on somebody else, you can definitely do that. And then I will mention that Sean Bain Jr. was able to practice in full on Tuesday and Wednesday due to that knee injury that he's working his way back from, but he does remain out once again this week, but very much trending in the right direction. Then we move down to the Roughriders defense. They're $4,200. I have them as a potential cash game option. Will be slightly overweight to the field on them. They've played pretty well so far this season. It is an attractive matchup going against the Edmonton Elks. And then we move down to that Elks team. Quarterback, I'm not playing either one of these guys this week unless we have some guarantees that maybe Cody Fajardo gets to start. Trey Ford, coming off the really rough performance in their most recent game, looks like more of a controversy than we've probably seen so far this season. But, if you really want to make a stance there, you can definitely do it. It's just not something I'm personally doing this week overall. And then we move down to the running back position. Javon Leake, GPP option, probably going to be in line with the field on him at $5,900. Justin Rankins, $7,600 GPP option, probably going to be slightly underweight to the field on him, but there is a little bit upside to be had there at the same time as well. Then we move down to Tanner Green at fullback, $2,500. Didn't practice on Monday, was limited in practice on Tuesday and Wednesday due to back injury. He's technically listed as questionable. If he's unable to go, they do have another guy, I believe, on the practice roster that they would promote, but not really too concerned about it for DFS purposes. And then for the wide receivers, I'm mainly only looking at Steven Dunbar Jr. and Curly Giddens Jr. Both are very viable GPP options. Probably going to be in line with the field on both them at $6,500 and $6,400 just in general. If you really want to take a shot on somebody else, you can do it. I'm just not personally getting there myself this week in general. And then for the Elks defense, they're at $3,800. Don't really love the price tag. Don't really love the matchup. So GPP option, underweight to the field on them. Then we move down to the Toronto Argonauts. Chad Kelly at quarterback, limited in practice on Tuesday, didn't practice on Wednesday due to that leg injury. Still very much remains to be seen if and when he'll be back at this point in time. It's just not trending in the right direction whatsoever. Nick Arbuckle at quarterback, $9,900 GPP option if you want to get there. I'll be underweight to the field on him. I'm not really getting to him too much just in general. Deontay McMahon returned last week at $6,000 GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on him. He did look pretty good last week. Was limited practice on Tuesday, practiced in full on Wednesday due to that ankle injury, so I would expect him to be good to go this week just in general. Leyburn was the backup running back behind him. They did sign Jaron Mitchell back to that practice roster. He had a really good preseason for them. Was kind of surprised that he didn't make the actual roster coming out of the preseason, and then that they did ultimately end up cutting him from the practice roster at one point in time, but he's back with the team. Would like to see him get an opportunity at some point in time. In terms of the wide receivers, I'm mainly just getting to DeMonte Cox at $8,700 and Kevin Meidel at $7,200. Probably going to be in line with the field on both of them. If there's one stance to be had, maybe slightly overweight to the field on Kevin Meidel just in general. If you want to take a shot on somebody else, whether that's Tavares Daniels, Denorian Grant, or David Unger III, you can definitely do that at the same time as well. Then we move down to the Argonauts defense. They're $3,900. GPP option probably going to be in line with the field on them. There's a little bit of upside to be had against Winnipeg. Zach Collaros is a little bit banged up at quarterback, but should still be starting. If it's not him, it's Chris Trevler. There's some opportunities for turnovers. And if they can stop the run game, should be an okay matchup. But at the same time, I'm not going out of my way to play a lot of Argonauts defense. But if they do happen to follow my lineups, not going to be too upset about it at the same time as well. Then we move down to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Zach Collaros at quarterback, $10,000. I have him listed as a GPP option, assuming that he does start this week, which the news makes it look like it's going to be the case. Going to be in line with the field on him, maybe ever so slightly underweight to the field. He was able to practice in full on Tuesday and Wednesday due to that neck injury. Last game he kind of got knocked out of. At one point in time, it sounded like it was going to be another concussion for him, which, he's up there in age. He's had a couple now at this point in time, so anytime you hear that, it's a little bit more concerning, but sounds like he'll be good to go for this week just in general. We'll monitor that situation just a little bit further if anything does happen to change. And then we move down to running back with Brady Oliveira, $10,000 GPP option. Probably going to be in line with the field on him. Maybe ever so slightly overweight to the field this week. If Collaros is a little bit banged up, maybe he doesn't throw the ball quite as much as he normally would. And maybe they lean on Brady Oliveira, the very talented running back, a little bit more this week just in general. Then we move down to the wide receivers, Kevin Clericis at $5,400. Coming off a poor performance after a really good week the week prior, GPP option, probably going to be in line with the field if you want to go there. And then Nick Dominski at $9,400. GPP option, probably going to be slightly overweight to the field on him. Would even consider him a cash game option if you really want to go that direction. Then we have Kerry Queefall at $8,600. GPP option, probably going to be in line with the field on him at the same time as well. And then Cody Case, who was up last week at $4,200. Kind of a dart throw if he's active once again this week. He was able to get some return duties as well as a couple of receptions and a touchdown. So there could be a little bit of upside there just in general, but we have to make sure that he's active before we go out of our way to play him just in general. And then we had the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense, $4,100 GPP option, slightly overweight to the field on them as they are going against the Toronto Argonauts. Should be a pretty favorable matchup just in general. Then we move down to the BC Lions. We got Nathan Rourke at quarterback. He's all the way up to $11,000. GPP option probably going to be in line with the field on him. Definitely do like the upside once again, but the price tag is getting up there at this point in time. He was technically limited on Wednesday due to that core injury, but he is expected to play once again this week. James Butler at running back, $9,400. GPP option probably going to be in line with the field on him. Had a down week after the monster performance the week before, but definitely do like his upside in this matchup at the same time as well. Xander Horvath behind him technically was able to practice in full on Wednesday due to that hand injury once again, but was inactive last week. And then we move down to Stanley Berryhill at $8,200. GPP option probably going to be in line with the field on him once again, but he was limited in practice on Wednesday. I have listed as personal. They said it was not football related, not injury related, so should be good to go for this week overall. We'll keep an eye on that if anything does happen to change. Javon Cotoy at $7,000. GPP option probably going to be in line with the field on him once again. Maybe ever so slightly underweight to the field. Haven't seen too many boom weeks from him yet this season. Keon Hatcher at $9,700. GPP option probably going to be slightly overweight to the field on him once again. Been very, very solid so far this season. Aiden Eberhardt was coming off the big week, so I will mention him at $8,300. He got the 2 touchdowns. He got, the 100 yards receiving. So if you want to go out and play him, you can definitely do it. It's just kind of like once in a blue moon that he comes out and has these big games. So I'm not really banking on it once again this week. And then Justin McKinnis at $7,800. GPP option. Price tag's dropping now at this point in time, but he has not been good outside of 2 weeks this year. So underweight to the field on him. Was limited practice on Wednesday due to a thigh injury, so we will monitor that injury situation at the same time as well. And then Seven McGee at $2,500, operating as the returner for both kicks and punts. Pay down option there, probably going to be slightly overweight to the field on him. There are a lot of good cheap returners this week overall, so maybe we can utilize them in a pretty decent way. And then we move down to that BC Lions defense, $3,400, kind of a pay down option in line with the field on them. If they can get some pressure on Bo Levi Mitchell and create some turnovers, maybe there's a chance here, but BC Lions defense has kind of underwhelmed so far this season. Then we move down to the Tiger Cats. We got Bo Levi Mitchell at quarterback once again, $10,600. Second most expensive quarterback. He's getting up there in price tag, but GPP option probably going to be in line with the field on him once again. Maybe ever so slightly underweight to the field, but definitely do like his upside in this matchup. And then we have the running back situation once again. So Greg Bell is at $8,800, limited practice on Wednesday due to that rib injury. So we'll see whether or not he's good to go. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the week. And then Anthony Litre behind him did not practice on Wednesday due to the hamstring injury. Similar story for him last week, but he did ultimately end up playing. And then Johnny Augustine, if Greg Bell doesn't play at $5,300, he's going to look very interesting. GPP option, if he starts, will be slightly overweight to the field on him. Going to look like probably a cash game option at that point in time, if that's the case. However, we might not get that news till after lock, so that is kind of unfortunate at the same time as well. Then we move down to wide receivers. So we're looking at Kenny Lawler, we're looking at Keandre Smith, and Tim White. So all three are going to be GPP options. Probably going to be in line with the field on all three this week. Kenny Lawler is all the way up to $12,000 now. Ownership was still like 40% last week in the contest that I played in. So, if you want to get slightly overweight to that ownership, definitely do understand that with how he's played so far this year. But price tag's definitely getting up there at this point in time. Keandre Smith had a decent week last week once again, so $5,300. You can definitely get to him. And then Tim White, he's kind of been hit or miss this year. He's had the big weeks. He's had the not so great weeks. So definitely feel free to take a stance one way or another if that's something you really want to do. And then Drew Walter-Ziski was limited in practice on Wednesday due to the hamstring injury, but probably going to be out once again this week. We haven't seen him active so far this season. And then we move down to Tiger Cats defense. They're all the way up to $4,600 at this point in time. GPP option, but will be slightly underweight to the field on them, as I just don't really feel like paying that price tag for this Tiger Cats defense going against the BC Lions this week just in general. And then last but not least, the Ottawa Redblacks are the lone team on the bye this week. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown of my CFL DFS sheet for week number 8. As always, if you have any questions related to CFL DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then once again, I'll be listing all the depth charts as they do come out throughout the week down in the comment section. I'll also be leaving any other major news that comes out throughout the week. Otherwise, this sheet is up on my Patreon page. It will be constantly updated throughout the week, especially as we do get the depth charts and the additional injury news. So definitely on the lookout for that. If you're interested in doing that, definitely be sure to check out my Patreon page. Once again, a very small monthly donation over there. You get access to my CFL DFS sheets for a month, as well as daily MLB DFS notes Monday through Saturday, if that's something you're interested in at the same time as well. But with that being said, if you're brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have MLB DFS in terms of the core pick videos, typically Monday through Friday. And then I do have my CFL DFS video. This video coming out once a week. That typically comes out on Wednesdays. So definitely be sure to look out for this video in future weeks. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS and Prize Picks. If you're a brand new user on either one of those sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you'll get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section of this video or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for this week's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tune in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in CFL DFS for week number 8.